Okay, take it away.
All right, welcome everybody to our current and our future viewers. I'm excited to have you today. My name is Vince Musell. I'm the OpenRN project lead librarian. I'm from Chippewa Valley Technical College in Eau Claire, Wisconsin. And with me today is Kim Ernstmeyer, the project director from OpenRN. Kim, do you want to say hi?
Sure. Hello, everyone, and welcome. Thank you for joining us, and we're really excited to show the progress that we've made on this project over the past year.
Yeah, so today we're going to talk just a little bit about the OpenRN project. Here's our agenda on the screen here. So today we're going to provide a high-level overview of the project, and then we're going to discuss some advocacy and education strategies. Then we're going to kind of briefly describe the development and review process that we use, and then explain how to access the Nursing Pharm textbook and associated activities. And then we're going to briefly outline our virtual simulation scenarios being created by the project. So to start, we wanted to share just a little bit of background on the project. In the summer of 2018, Chippewa Valley Technical College applied for the first round of the Department of Education's Open Textbook Pilot Grant. We did this in collaboration with some of our sister technical colleges in Wisconsin. We ended up not winning for the first round of grants, but we were awarded for the second string. So we were the second string winners about 6 months later. In the grant, we were charged with creating 5 open textbooks and 25 related virtual reality scenarios by 2023. We partnered with other technical colleges in Wisconsin, as I mentioned. There's 16 of us total. And I think it's worth mentioning that although we're a system, we're all independently governed by local government. So it's not a huge system like you'd see with the University of Wisconsin or many of our respective states' university systems. The FTEs at our institution alone, for example, are around 4,000 students. So the project really, as you can see from this infographic, the scope is quite large. We expect to save students just in Wisconsin $1.5 million annually, and we expect to impact about 5,700 students annually as well. And then again, the scope of the size of the project, it's interesting to say we have so many people involved in this project. Right now we have over 200 reviewers and collaborators. So it's really a huge, exciting project. So next up, I'm gonna pass the baton to Kim, who's gonna talk a little bit more about some strategies.
You could go back to that previous slide for a minute, Vince. I just want to emphasize, because we get a lot of questions about when our textbooks will be available. So we've already published the Nursing Pharmacology textbook that's both available in ebook format and downloadable versions from Pressbooks, and we also have a print version available. The fundamentals and skills books are currently in development. We're just finishing the final formatting of the skills book actually, and that will be ready for peer review in January or February, and fundamentals a month or so after that. And those will be published, we anticipate, this summer. And then the final 2 books should be ready in the summer of 22, so that they can be used in the fall of 22. So let's go to the next slide. What we'd like to do for our presentation today, we've gotten a lot of questions from other institutions that are applying for the next round of grant funding from the Department of Ed. So we framed our presentation around the absolute priorities that are part of the grant applications for that project. So collaboration truly is key in the success of our project. As Vince mentioned, there's 16 technical colleges in Wisconsin. CVTC is leading this project with 3 other lead colleges. Because of that structure, this existing infrastructure, we already had pre-established semi-annual meetings with nursing deans and quarterly meetings with the state curriculum committee. So that was very helpful to get our project up and running. Collaboration with faculty is also key to success. So we have 3 different roles in which faculty can contribute to the project. So the first one is development, where they're actually developing content based on existing OER material, pulling in information from the public domain, and also quoting information from peer-reviewed nursing journals. If faculty don't want to be involved to that extent, they can also be a contributor on the project. So we've established work groups for each of the textbooks Any faculty from any of the 16 colleges can join us. And what we do is we take the state curriculum, and each course competency for that course in the curriculum is a chapter in the textbook. So we have a nice structure to begin with. Then we use our work group time to talk through more granular data, like specific learning objectives they use in their courses, leveling the material, talking through concepts that are confusing to students, and developing learning activities to address those. And while we're doing that development work and the contribution work, we use Google Docs so that everyone has access to the material as it is being created, and they can make comments on that material as well. The third way that faculty and others can become involved in the project is through a reviewer role. So our first peer review process happened in February of 2020, right before COVID really hit, thank goodness. We opened it up nationally because we received so much national interest from others at the Open Ed conference in particular last fall. So we had over 30 peer reviewers from instructors that currently teach the course, which was nursing pharmacology for our first book. And we also had industry members. Industry members could ensure that the content was current and accurate, and they also helped identify current trends going on that could be addressed within the textbooks. So reviewers are paid a $400 flat stipend payment based on other review processes we saw out in the literature. And a rubric was provided where they could rate different aspects of the textbooks, and we remixed some content from Open Textbook Network and Quality Matters rubrics to create that. And they also had the ability to share specific feedback at the sentence level using a product called Hypothesis. And that was also another product that we learned about at the last Open Ed project. So that was really key in promoting quality of the textbook. We learned a lot. We had never published a textbook before, so we got a lot of great feedback from others across the country. And it also contributed to buy-in. So as faculty could see the quality of our OER, they became more interested in utilizing it in their courses this fall. So let's go to the next slide. Oh, and by the way, we encourage you to add any questions either within the chat as we go. We have a lot of content to cover, but we will be around for about 15 minutes at the end. So as I'm talking, feel free to add questions and we'll come back and address them at the end. Okay, so the next priority we're going to talk about is addressing gaps. So the books were originally selected based on high enrollment courses in the nursing programs. And we immediately noticed within the state of Wisconsin that there was quite a gap in faculty awareness about what OER is. Our state WTCS OER network gathered some data, and they found that although librarians, administrators, advisors were aware of OER, faculty and students didn't have that great of awareness. So Vince created an OER 101 course. I'm going to let him talk about that course a little bit more right now.
Yeah, thanks, Kim. So as part of the grant, as Kim mentioned, we were charged with ensuring that faculty were able to understand OER and also advocate for it. So we created what's referred to as a student success with open and affordable resources. It's a mouthful, so we also call it OER 101. It's a 10 to 15 hour asynchronous online course, and it's framed through the lens of who, what, where, when, why, and how. So our target audience is faculty, but we've had a lot of administrators, librarians, instructional designers, leadership, et cetera, participate. The pilot course started in January. We've had over 100 graduates, largely from Wisconsin, specifically Wisconsin faculty, but we've also seen some great interest across the country. So we've had participants from California to New York, Florida, Arizona, et cetera. Just as a final quip here, the course is certified by Quality Matters. It's openly licensed. It's available in Canvas Commons, and it's also peer reviewed. We've had some great interest with that, and that's available on our website as well. So if you want to take a look at that, feel free. Thanks,
Vince. And that course has really been helpful to to raise awareness of OER, and especially for those that are interested in participating in the project. It gives them kind of a baseline knowledge of OER in terms of using open access materials, and really has helped with motivation as faculty become more aware of this is about student success. Yes, it decreases costs, but this is a way that we can really enhance student success in our courses. So another way that we address gaps is we established an advisory committee. So this is composed of industry members from across the state, hospital bedside nurses, administrators, nursing deans, and we meet semi-annually, and they help to identify gaps that new nursing graduates may have, or identify current nursing trends that may not necessarily be in textbooks yet at this point. And so we're definitely on the cutting edge with some of those. So for example, one of the gaps that our advisory committee recommended expanding on was de-escalating agitated patients and family members. It's an example of a high risk, high stakes scenario that nursing students don't get a chance to practice while they're in school. So we'll be using that to create some of our virtual reality scenarios so that students do have the opportunity to practice that skill. And one final way that we identified gaps was we did a gap analysis with our virtual reality work group. And this work group is composed of faculty and simulation technicians from across the state. And what we did is ask them to identify priority criteria for what they'd like to see in virtual reality scenarios that they may not necessarily be able to accomplish in a traditional simulation lab. So one of the top priorities that were identified was the ability for faculty to customize those scenarios. Some products are pre-programmed, but there's always a little tweak that a specific faculty member wants to change to tailor it to their students in their classroom. So that was a top priority. Another priority was the desktop usability of virtual simulation. So we'll be talking about that more in our technology slide. So let's go to the next slide. And, promoting student success is really the reason why we're creating these textbooks. And so by aligning it completely with the WTCS nursing state curriculum, these textbooks are truly focused on what students need to know to be successful in their nursing courses. And so not only are we creating the textbook content, but we also incorporate several learning activities using H5P software. And we'll also talk about that more on our next slide. Another way that we promote success is how we disseminate these textbooks. So we're using Pressbooks as our platform for publishing the ebook, and that also allows for downloadable versions, such as a PDF file, or if students want to read it on their Kindle or other devices. But after researching a little bit more, we discovered that over 60% of students actually prefer a print version of a textbook. And I think that's become even more important during this COVID crisis, as we're doing a lot more remote learning. In Wisconsin, over 30% of rural members do not have access to internet at home. And so we need to consider that when we're providing these versions. So we developed a relationship with Xanadu, who publishes the OpenStax textbooks, and they were able to create an edited PDF version that was actually fewer pages than the ebook version. So for example, our ebook for pharmacology was over 780 pages. They were able to edit that down and condense it, same amount of content, but about 500 or so pages. And so they provide that free edited PDF file available to students, and that's on one of our slides at the end of this presentation. And then students can also purchase an affordable print version, either in their college bookstore or on Amazon, for about $40. You can see, this is an example of our textbook. I don't know if you can see it because I can't see myself, but it looks like a regular textbook. The other thing that we incorporated as part of the print version is Xanadu was able to put a $5 royalty fee on the print versions. And that royalty fee is saved and put in a specific earmarked account at CVTC as a sustainability fund for these textbooks. We had a lot of questions about sustainability as we rolled out this project, especially by faculty who were concerned, what if we adopt this textbook and in 3 years it's no longer being updated? So this was a wonderful solution after grant funding ends that we'll be able to continue to update the textbooks using evidence-based practices, which is really important in the nursing field. Another way that we contributed to student success outside of the state of Wisconsin is all these textbooks will be uploaded to LibreText. If you're not already aware of LibreText, they have a wonderful remixing tool that allows faculty to pull sections, paragraphs, whatever they would like to use from different textbooks, pull it over and then publish their own textbook with that material. So we really are hopeful that what we're creating will be able to be used and remixed by nursing programs across the country. We'll be assessing student metrics starting with courses this semester. So we'll be looking not only at cost savings, but we'll be looking at student learning outcomes. So how did sections using OER compare in terms of retention and success rates to other course sections across Wisconsin that are not using OER? And then we'll be able to use that data as we continue to develop more textbooks. And the final way that we gather feedback is there is a faculty and student survey that is incorporated into the ebooks and as well into the H5P scenarios that I'm going to talk about next. So one of the other criteria, absolute criteria, was personalized learning and technology. And what we decided to use was something called H5P. If you're not already aware of H5P, it does come as a free software platform. There also is the ability to purchase the software, but you can provide learning activities to students for free using this software. And this is how we're creating formative assessment activities, such as flashcards, quiz questions, and then something really innovative called branching scenarios. So branching scenarios are truly can be classified as virtual simulations. There's another nursing program in Canada that is also using branching scenarios. And so what we were able to do as the COVID crisis hit, we were able to use a lot of existing media that we created as part of a previous grant project called the Arise project and pull simulated patient videos, simulated nurses and other disciplines, providing information about the patients. We're able to pull those into the branching scenarios and allow students to make decisions as they applied the content that they were learning in the unit to patient care, make decisions, and then follow down the branch. If they made the correct answer, they were able to proceed. If they made an incorrect answer, then they were allowed to try again with rationale provided why it was incorrect. So that's one way that we were able to respond to the COVID crisis. So because of COVID especially, we decided to expand our definition of virtual reality. So as you recall, we'll be creating 25 virtual reality scenarios as part of the grant. And what we've done is expanded that definition. So the precise definition of virtual reality is a totally immersive learning experience requiring the use of a VR headset like an Oculus Rift, has great learning outcomes, but there are barriers for students. Obviously, they need that technology. So they either need to have their own headset if they're at home, or they need to go to campus. And we all know what's happening with COVID that's making that difficult. So by expanding the definition to virtual simulation, we're able to use screen-based learning activities where the students do not need to have a VR headset or be at a physical location. So we selected a VR vendor called Acadicus. That was based on that gap analysis I mentioned earlier from our VR work group. And what we can do with Acadicus is use Zoom to screen broadcast virtual reality scenarios out to students that can participate on their regular laptop or iPhone or iPad or whatever device they have to access the internet. The faculty is able to facilitate the scenario just like they would in a simulation lab according to INACSL standards of best practices, which is what nurses use to facilitate simulations, and allow students to participate. So to wrap up some lessons that we've learned through the past over 18 months or so, is the milestones that were communicated in our grant application were really important to help us scope out the project and set deadlines. Another key point was that key personnel really are key. So on our team, not only Vince and myself are on the team, but we also have a instructional designer that's helped with creating the H5P scenarios, an instructional technologist that's helped with the H5P and the virtual reality. We have a copy editor who had experience with proofreading commercial textbooks. And so she's helped us to format our textbook as a commercial textbook is traditionally done. And we also have a grants accounting specialist that has experience with federal grants. So that's our core team. And then we have all the other work groups working on the textbooks. We established a workflow at the beginning, and that's continuing to evolve as we learn more about what faculty are interested in creating and participating in doing. We have discovered that this it's called model of information search process really plays out over and over again, because our faculty are not experienced in creating textbooks. So as they're participating in the actions, kind of at the bottom of the slide here, in terms of seeking relevant information and exploring more about OER, their thoughts feel kind of vague. They're not quite sure about what OER is or how to create it. They have these feelings that start with feelings of uncertainty. They get more optimistic as they learn about the potential impact on student success. But when it's time to start developing OER, there's this common feeling of confusion, frustration, doubt, kind of like an imposter syndrome. But we encourage them at that point, sit down and write the content just like you would teach it to your course. You may not be an expert in this specific chapter of this textbook, but you know what students need to know as a nurse, and you know what students tend to struggle with as they're learning this content. So you're an expert in teaching this information. And as they sit down and start developing this information, they develop more of a clarity and a sense of direction. And then by the time that we're done with the textbook, they feel a great deal of satisfaction about being a part of the project. So it's really interesting to see it play out. And it's something that I think faculty really need a lot of encouragement as they go through. I also wanted to mention real quick before we go too far is that Reba's Guide to Publishing was really important. I know we're running out of time here. So I just want to mention that these resources are all available as hyperlinks on this slide. If you want to go to our Google Doc list of H5P activities, you can click on the H5P icon. You can see our ebook. You can see the edited PDF. And we will stay for the next 15 minutes and answer any questions.
Thank you, Kim and Vince. And yes, I'm glad that you addressed that, because I did notice that several of the questions in the chat were about the resources and platforms and if you could share them. So I'm glad that you mentioned that they are available in the slides. I wanted to lump a couple of questions that I saw. Actually, first, I do need to end the formal session, so I'm going to stop the recording. But as you said, this room will be open for 15 more minutes to take more questions and chat informally.